part of this class, I'm going to show you a couple of the tracks that I've produced in the past. I'll break down how I constructed these tracks. I'll tell you about the arrangement, about the mixing and the mastering. I'll show you my plugins. I'll show you my techniques and the little things that I think make the difference. I'll show you how I work in the studio. I'll create a track completely from scratch. Also, I'll tell you all about how I construct a DJ set and what I think is important. I want dance music to grow. I want new talents to flourish. You could be the next superstar. That would be my dream come true if my lesson would add to that. I'm Armin Van Buuren, and this is my masterclass.
Hello everyone, it's Lewis P here. I hope everyone's having an amazing day, night, wherever you are in the world. Today what we're going to be talking about is the Armin Van Buuren Teaches Dance Masterclass. Now before we actually dive into the class, as though you're right next to me, no edits, no cuts, as always guys. If you click the link in the description, it goes to $90. So you're welcome there, I got your back. So let's jump straight into it. There are more than 20 lessons, there are actually more than 30 lessons because I've already taken this class. You may say, well it says coming early. Now I'm going to show you the entire class after this because I have early access. So if you get it, you get early access, which means you can actually use the class, which is quite good. Now, before I jump into everything in each class, I want to just make sure that you guys know who Armin is. Now, this is a pretty good summary of who he is. If you don't know who he is, pause the video, open up another tab and click Armin Van Buuren Communication, because that's probably where his real big track started. So check it out, really cool. Also 30 classes, 30 lessons, which makes it 10 more lessons than the deadmau5 Masterclass, which is, in my opinion, I'll make a separate video on that, so make sure to subscribe and we'll make another video. Click that notification bell as well, and you'll know when I create that video versus deadmau5 Masterclass versus the Armin Van Buuren Masterclass. Obviously, there's a class workbook which applies to every single masterclass that comes out. Really cool. You take that as well as taking the videos, which gives you a bit more context on what you should be doing and what you should be researching. Office hours. That's cool. You basically send them a video file, video file of yourself, a video recording of yourself, and you can ask Armin Van Buuren a question. He'll see your face. He will actually respond to it. Insane. Obviously, it's 100% guaranteed because Masterclass is a reliable company, and then it's available on any browser, and then on top of that, you can launch it on any device. And a little thing that you'd know about this class, it's more like 33 lessons, 34 lessons. It is quite long. It took me a few days to actually get through this. And as soon as the early access came out, I was on top of that like a mad bull. So let's jump straight into it, guys. Let's have a look at the actual class. So this is the class itself, guys. Now, as you can see, all the ticks indicates that I've actually watched all of the classes. I think I missed one because I didn't, there it is, I missed that one. Hosting a radio show because I'll watch that at another time. It's on demand, guys, so you watch it whenever you want. The big question before we get into this, though, is what DAW does he use and does it matter? And also, is it better than the deadmau5 Masterclass? Well, which DAW he uses? He uses both Ableton and Logic. The thing is, I'm not a Logic user, but the way he uses it and the way you see him actually produce music, because he creates an entire song from scratch, which sounds pretty amazing, by the way. He creates an entire track from scratch. You see the similarities. So while taking this class, you're also learning Logic along the way, and you'll see it's very, very similar to Ableton. Especially, it's just the interface. But basically, as he says, it's not about the knives, it's about the chef, and it's so true, because you can do all the same functionality. So it doesn't matter if you're using Ableton, Fruity Loops, Logic. It just looks a bit different, but it's exactly the same. So let's jump straight into it. Introduction, obviously you get an introduction of the class. If I go into it, here's a quick rundown. Obviously there are PDFs, there are discussions as well. You can actually join these discussions, guys. 198 comments in the first lesson itself. As people are taking these slowly, if we go to the last lesson, it probably only has 6 or something. Let's have a look. How many? 11 comments. There it is. See, not everyone has finished his class yet, so it's definitely the time to get on here as soon as possible. So early stages of the class, really, really interesting. Cool to see, you know, what he's going to be talking about. You even heard it at the start of this video, what's actually happening, what he goes over, finding melodic inspiration, where he starts. Really, really interesting to see that. Let's move on. building your home studio, what's really cool is he actually takes you to his home studio, and he also teaches you a really cool method about using the Hertz on Ableton Live. About it's using a frequency, and he talks about sound waves and how to optimize your sound waves to your room. For example, here's one tip that he gives: you can put blankets on the room, on your walls to dampen the reflection of the sound, but that won't ultimately fix your bass problem. So then he has another fix for your bass problem. So it's really cool to see how he's built his home studio and what he does. Templates and organization in Logic. If you're an Ableton user, you can actually still use this. The way he structures everything, deadmau5 also does it as well in his masterclass. So it's just cool to really see the Logic Pro version of what basically deadmau5 does. But he takes it, I think, with all due respect, he takes it maybe a step further, because he also has some added features which I don't want to go into. In the studio, part 1 melody. So what he actually does is he goes, he has a partner called Benno. I don't know if you know who Benno is. He's Armin's right-hand man, if you will, a partner of him, however you want to call it. He's basically a really good, a colleague, if you will. You see them both start building a track throughout this entire course. And what's really cool is he gives context. So for example, in the studio melody, for example, before that, you're finding melodic inspiration. And what he does is he goes through all the classics in there, but then he actually shows you as it's done. Again here, working with pads and leads. What he does is this is what pads and leads are, this is how I produce them, and here is an example of me actually doing a professional sounding track with pads and leads. And it applies to all of them. More leads, creating a groove. Really, really cool. I love this one so much. And how he, uses his kicks and his bass. I've always had a bit of problems with my bass and kicks, but, hearing this, really, really cool. And it's much more detailed. So I'm going to do an entire video on deadmau5 versus Armin's masterclass, and make sure you sub for that. But the reality is, this is very detailed, and I really got to pay homage to this guy. He's nailed this class because it goes so deep, and the plugins he's using is really, really cool. And guys, I'm gonna say it now, deadmau5 is gonna hate this. He uses Nexus, and for you guys that don't know what that means, it's a pretty big deal, because deadmau5 really craps all over the Nexus users, and Armin is using Nexus, which is actually a blessing to see. It's quite funny, but the reality is he's using these tools because everyone has these tools, so it's cool. And guys, remember, you don't actually need half these plugins to produce music. He doesn't sell that as much as deadmau5 does. Either way, we'll go into that in the other video. But the big payoff, when the drop hits, boom, and you also see that in the trailer. Really, really cool to see how he makes that, his process, how much pause, how much silence he gives. He gives a lot of emphasis on silence, and then explosions. Mixing and mastering, really cool. Everyone needs to do that. Mixing and mastering part 2. Again, it's really detailed. Each one, I think, goes for like 20 minutes, 15 minutes. So they try and keep it a small. So you got about 30 minutes worth of one of the best producers on the planet teaching you how to mix and master with Jono. So really, really, really cool. Cleaning up and mixing. So that's good. Similar to mixing and mastering, because remember, he's giving you context on what it is, and then he actually does it. So really, really cool. Mix and arrangements, case study. So Be in the Moment, that's actually a track, one of his tracks, and he does a case study on it and basically discusses how he's actually built the track. And we're only 16, guys. There's another 33 to go, right? So it's long, and you're going to take time to do this, and you're going to learn a lot. You're going to absorb a lot of information. And believe me, by the time you finish this masterclass, you will be ready to make a track afterwards. And I'm not going to show you any of the tracks that I've built so far. I'll leave that to other videos. Arranging, percussion, and arranging, that's fine. Again, context, and then example. Really, really, I love that. I love it so much. Building the drop, reviewing the track. He goes into that quite deeply, because he says, have other people review your track that are close to you. Have your friends review it, for example. And when you have a teammate like Benno that's next to you, then 2 sets of ears is better than 1 set of ears. But it's ultimately, I don't want to go too deep into that, but it is really, really cool to see that. Working with lyrics and vocals, and then vocal sessions. So he teaches you, okay, so this is how I work with lyrics and vocals, using one of his tracks as an example. And then on top of that, he actually has an example of that. So there is an actual vocal session. I really want to go into it, but you also actually saw it in the trailer a bit. That was really cool. And then he works with the artist as well. For Armin Van Buuren himself, he's just like, I want to make my artist feel as comfortable as possible. Bring them into the room. He's really humble. He's like, what are your thoughts on this? Which take did you like? Because they take multiple takes, and you see each take they take. Well, each like, I don't know, well, each take they take, right? You actually see each recording they do, and then he brings the artist in and he's like, which one do you like? Here are all of them, and let me know which one you like. And then basically, so the ones I like, let's compare them, and then master. And then there's even more than that, editing and mixing, auto-tune. He's not a big fan of auto-tune because he likes the natural sound of voices, but it's really cool to see how once he has the vocal session in place, then let's make it sound amazing, basically. And really, really cool to see his process. And again, guys, you can do all of this in Ableton. It doesn't matter which DAW you're using. Singles, club mixes, and edits. Really cool. I mean, a lot of people actually already know this, but basically he breaks it down for people that don't. The difference between a single, a club mix, and an edit. Basically, you have extended versions that are for the clubs, for the DJs to mix in. Then you have the singles, which is basically made for everyone in the radio. And then you just have simple edits. And there's so many different variants to a track. And you actually see him building all these variants in one DAW project. So it's pretty cool. Approaching your DJ set, basically how to become a DJ properly, and what you should be doing. Building a set, edits and mashups, cool. I didn't find that much value from that. Using the decks. So how do you actually use the crazy, CDJs and the USB sticks? He teaches you how to do that. And he also emphasizes that you don't actually need to buy these decks. You can just rent them and just know how they work and then just give them back. So there are very much cost-effective ways of learning how to use decks, and it's ultimately, guys, just rent them. I didn't even think of that, but that's if you're provided that you want to be getting into DJing. And if you're a producer, then you probably want to be a DJ because events pay a lot of money. Using the decks, his techniques as well, really cool. You can even see a little image of it there. You see him actually, as though it's pretty cool when you think about it, right? Because you see Armin at all these cool events, and then on top of that, you actually see what he's doing and his thought process behind him using the decks instead of him just clapping his hands. You see what he's actually doing, so that's cool, and I think that's very rare to actually hear him also talk about it. Performance tips, what you should be doing, that's great. Even handling trolls, for example, who you're performing for. If you're performing at Future Music Festival, you're performing for the people in front of you rather than everyone online. And you're going to have trolls online. Everyone gets the trolls. Don't worry about them. They're noobs. Hosting a radio show. I haven't watched this one yet, to be honest. That means I don't really have that much to say on it. I'll probably watch it tomorrow or another day. That's the best thing about the class. You just watch it whenever you want. And then Armin's early influences. So again, he goes into some of the, and then it makes you want to go into them as well. Vangelis and all of this. You hear all the original synth users, and he calls them the early adopters of trance before it was even called trance. So I thought this was very valuable, and I really enjoyed that. And it also took me on like a journey of where it began to him, and that's what he was listening to. So when you're looking at a master like this, you want to know who his masters were. So cool. Starting and growing your career, really good. What you should be doing with respect to tapes. They're not tapes anymore, they're USB sticks. How you should be approaching producers, how you should be approaching media people, everyone. So he gives you the rundown on how to do that. Labels, for example, and then closing. And this is the biggest motivation of all of them, in my opinion. And that's just ultimately what his thoughts, where you should be going, and how you should be doing it in order to progress your career in music creation. And that's 33 lessons, guys. Deadmau5 was, I think, 20 lessons. So you're getting a lot more value in a way from this class as well. So obviously there's a class workbook, you can download it, very simple. And that is pretty much the entire class. You're going to take a few days, especially if you're doing the workbook. You're going to take at least probably 2 weeks if you're really taking this seriously. And guys, give it your time. There's a community as well. There's resources where you can actually download tracks, which is cool, and office hours as well. So it's all there right in front of you. And that is pretty much it. So again, guys, that's pretty much the masterclass. Thank you so much for watching. Again, guys, link in the description. Let me know what you think of it. Thank you very much for watching. Lewis P, out.
And then it stays on the note. That's better for me. Cool.
Maybe a nice bright pad to fill it up. Old school trance, man.